1968, I was a young girl. What was I doing? Let me see. I didn't graduate from high school at 17, 1971. So I was 15. I was going to high school. I was living in a very secluded country life in Olympia, actually right outside Lacey, and going to high school. But when I first was going to college, a lot of the boys that was turning 18 was getting nervous because of the draft. They have to sign up for the draft. And I kind of felt sorry for them, because if their numbers come up, that means that they will be drafted into the Army. A lot of them chose to go to other armed forces like the Air Force or Navy to avoid going to war. There was one of the students when I was going to Washington State University. There was a young man that was a year older than I was, and he had two brothers that went to Vietnam, and both of them died. And so there was a law there that if he was the only son, they will not draft him. So he wasn't drafted in the Army, but unfortunately two of his older brothers went to war in Vietnam and died. I personally didn't know anyone going to Vietnam. I know there were a few of my friends that were protesting the war. There was a friend of mine, he wrote a poem, and I remember reading, "Hell no, I won't go, hell no, I won't go." He was one of those young men that was nervous about his numbers coming up, and luckily he wasn't drafted. His numbers were high. He's now an attorney. Every day the news would talk about the casualty, how many men died, and what was going on. It was a never-ending war that kept going on forever, and we didn't win the war. In fact, I know that the history of Vietnam, the French were fighting there, and they pulled out and left, and then the United States came and took and fought. You know, there was no heroes. The soldiers came home. People hated them, that they were that they went to war. It's not like the soldiers now that came back from Iraq and they're considered heroes. I just remember a lot of broken veterans, physically broken, emotionally broken. I know a friend of mine, his brother, who is, let's say, 8 years older than I am, went to war, and he's still suffering right now. I just remember it being kind of stagnant, the government and the atmosphere. It was just stagnant. There was not a happy time. The economy was drained of the war. Technology, there was no technology growth. It was stagnant. And I believe because of the war effort, all the money was sent to fighting this war. And I believe the United States wasn't there for freedom, fighting the communists. It was all for social. It's for business. And that's what I learned in high school. We were there to fight the independence and getting the communists out there, but in reality, that is not true. They were aware, but there was not an issue. I remember there was no conversation about the war and history or anything. Um, it was, especially living in Olympia and Lacey, they were very sheltered and closed about it. I'm the eldest of 7, and eldest of 9, and I'm sorry, and I have 5 brothers, and I would worry about my brothers going to war, because this war was, as I said, was going on way back in the 50s. The French were there, now the United States in the 60s, now it's in the 70s. I was worried for my brothers, and I pray to God that they will not have to go to war. So as a teenager, I was worried for my brothers. My attitude towards war, I don't want war. I don't like war. I don't think the United States had any business to be in Vietnam. And that's what the protest was, is they don't need to, sometimes they think the United States needs to stay out and let the people fight on their own, and if they need help, like they need other support from the United Nations, and see the other nation to get support. The United States can't fight the war. We have our own problems here to be spending. There's homeless people that need houses. There's the veterans need help. There's people, young children that wants to go get educated, wants to go to school. There's no help for that. There's people that they need to help. The money should stay here, and some money needs to be here and help people here.